we will start our session soon. Before that, I would just like to inform all the members of the audience about some of the exhibitions that are going on in Bharat Bhavan. We have Poetry as Art, an exhibition by Rita Jhunjhunwala, which has been put up at Rang Darshini. Vernacular Gaunt Paintings, an exhibition and demonstration by Radhesham Kherwar ji at Forecourt in front of the Tribal Art Gallery. Permanent Hall of Masters at Modern Art Gallery. An exhibition on Adivasi art at Tribal Art Gallery. While next to the bookstore, we have two exhibitions. India Life Around Water, an exhibition by Dr. Sarah Keller, and an exhibition of projects by NID students. Well, Madhya Pradesh is rightly called the green heart of India. The land of tigers and leopards, the home of Mowgli, the forest-rich Madhya Pradesh is perfect for encountering wildlife, and we have quite a variety of options to choose from, such as Bandhavgarh, Pench, Kanha, Panna, Satpura, just to name a few. Well, for us in Madhya Pradesh, it is our pursuit of happiness. For a freewheeling chat on this wildlife pursuit, we now call our experts on the stage, Mr. Shivang Mehta, Mr. Ali Rashid, and Ms. Latika Nath. Best-selling author of A Decade with Tigers and Chasing Horizons, Learnings from Africa, international award-winning wildlife photographer Mr. Shivang Mehta has donned many hats in his long career. His love for wildlife led him to begin his on-field career in the Sal forests of Kumaon 2 decades ago. Mr. Mehta specializes in photographing rare species and has worked on species like the clouded leopard, snow leopard, fishing cat, and red panda, to name just a few. As a part of his work, he makes extensive use of technology like DSLR camera trapping and remote shooting. He is a fellow associate of the International League of Conservation Photographers. Joining him is Mr. Ali Rashid, who is the director and CEO of Jahanuma Wilderness. He is a trained naturalist, conservationist, and author of the first coffee table book on Satpura titled Tales from the Bush, A Peek into the World of Satpura. Mr. Rashid's passion for wildlife inspired him to work with his family to set up and run Rainy Pani Jungle Lodge, one of the finest wilderness lodges in India. His deep involvement with Satpura since his childhood has been a motivation to protect and conserve wildlife in this landscape. Among other wildlife and CSR initiatives that Mr. Rashid has undertaken are the ongoing camera trap studies in the reserve forest area outside the park that revealed breeding population of several large carnivores like leopards, wild hogs, and sloth bear, and also the presence of a young male tiger. Ms. Latika Nath started out as an academician and worked as a consultant with various national and international organizations such as the International Union for Conservation of Nature and the United Nations Development Programme on Environment and Wildlife. She has traveled the world to photograph various animal species and worked for their conservation. She eventually changed her focus to work with the tribal communities and to resolve human-wildlife conflicts. We welcome our experts. You may begin the session.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's so wonderful to be with Shivang and Ali, both people I've known for many years and spent many hours in the wild with. Welcome to the stage, Shivang, Ali. It's going to be an interesting talk because both Shivang and Ali have done some wonderful books, and they have many stories to share about their time in the wild and their experiences while they were doing all of this work is something that many of us will learn a lot from, and hope that we can emulate across the country when we're talking about wildlife tourism and conservation and photography. So, Shivang, I think I'd like to start with a question to you. So the first question, Shivang, you've done a book on Africa, you've done a book on India. Which one was more challenging and why?
Well, to be honest, the book on India was more challenging because since we all have been to Africa, the ease with which we see wildlife out there. In a country like India, there's a lot of effort which goes behind all the stories which we follow as wildlife photographers. So, but having said that, it's not that in a place like Africa, because a lot of things are seen and they are seen so easily. So the challenge out there is a little bit different on how to come out with perspectives which are very unique. So, and as a matter of fact, the book which I did on Africa was not purely on Africa. I mean, the concept of the book was that, I kept on seeing that as Indian wildlife photographers, when people visit places like, say, the Masai Mara and all, there used to be a Facebook status update going to the Mecca of wildlife, right? So I always used to wonder that, I come from a country which has got, X number of tigers, with the highest population of wild tigers in the world. Of the 40 odd global cat species, 16 of those cat species are there in my country, right? Right from the world's largest cat to the world's smallest cat is there in my country. To the world's tallest flying bird is there in my country. So why are these people saying that they are going to the Mecca of wildlife? My country is the Mecca of wildlife. So in order to correct that perception, I started working on that book. So it was called Chasing Horizons, Learnings from Africa. The only thing that I felt that can be learned from a place like Africa is the way they manage the wildlife, the way they manage the tourism. And there were a lot of photographic learnings for me, which, I started replicating those learnings in India. And so that was the entire comparison which I tried drawing between Africa and India through the medium of that book. So that book is solely not about Africa. It's all about the learnings from Africa. But of course, some of the Indian books which I have done till now have been very challenging purely because of the nature of forests and the kind of effort which has to be put in to do that documentation.
Thank you. And Ali, Shivang comes from a place where photography and his passion for wildlife has sort of dictated his life. Yours sort of evolved the other way. It was your passion for wildlife that evolved into a life with wildlife tourism and photography ultimately. So tell us about this and how it led to the idea for the book that you've just released.
Yeah, so Latika, you're quite right. It's two different people which have come together in this book that we've done. But the love for wildlife started, I'm from Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh, so, of course we all know that Madhya Pradesh is one of the most biodiverse states in the country. It is the, tiger state of India also. So, growing up, it was all about being outdoors, and that whole love for nature was kind of instilled in me while I was growing up. So even when I kind of came to an age where I was, going to start working, it was a natural choice to, be in the field of wildlife, not necessarily photography, but just be close to nature. And, it happened that we were also, as a family business, we were setting up a lodge. And Satpura has been very close to my heart. It's a park, it's a lesser known park, but and the book that we've done is about Satpura itself, what we'll speak about a little later. But that park has been a kind of childhood park where I've gone so many times, and so the stake in the area has been not just since we started our lodge, but since I was about 3-4 years old. So almost my entire life has been spent at least going in and out, and now of course being professionally involved there. So then of course the idea of the book, because there was such an affinity to this tiger reserve amongst others also, but particularly Satpura. And it's a lesser known park. It was a park which hadn't got any publication, no good literature was out. So Shivang used to visit us a lot, with his photography and with his tours and the tourism that we do. And then we thought of this, that let's come out with a book which does justice to Satpura. And we thought, let's not make it a photo album kind of book. We also kind of covered smaller, lesser known species like the Satpura leopard gecko. And we have a very, very interesting chapter about wildlife outside the protected area. So Shivang was talking about challenging situations of photography. We actually did camera trapping in and around our lodge and some private properties close by, and showcase the wildlife which is actually moving. And it's not just herbivores, it's major carnivores. All the animals that are inside the reserve are actually moving out, which also is known within MP. We have almost 25% of our tigers outside. So the idea of the book was to actually pretty much do justice to a park which is really close to my heart, both professionally as well as emotionally.
Wonderful. So Shivang, when you were working on your book on tigers, how much time did you spend to get all these photographs? I know it's over a decade, but how long do you spend in the field when you're on an assignment? One assignment is how many hours? How many photographs do you come back with it?
Well, a book is not conceptualized overnight. It takes a long time for any person who is interested in storytelling to come up with the idea of a book. So when I started working on tigers, because that was one of the keystone species in early 2000s and all, when I started my work as a naturalist in Corbett National Park. So that time I never had the idea of doing a book. Over a period of 10 years, by say 2010 or something, even then I didn't have any idea of doing a book. It was just that the story of Decade with Tigers is very interesting, because the book was not supposed to be like what it is in today's time. So there's this tigress there was this tigress in Bandhavgarh National Park, and she was in fact a one-eyed tigress. I mean, she lost an eye during a territorial battle with another tiger. And she was a very beautiful tigress before this battle. And I could see a changing trend amongst photographers also visiting Bandhavgarh, because she used to occupy the main area of Bandhavgarh in the Tala zone. So people used to just put their cameras down. Uski ek aankh kharab hai, so photo acha nahi aayega. But for me, that became a very interesting peg, because I just wanted to know that if I shut down my one eye, half of my world turns black. Now, for a predator like a tiger, how is she able to survive in this tough landscape? And tigers have a tough life. So how will she be able to raise a family? So those were questions which are coming into my mind. And for the first time, I never did it earlier, but then I just picked up one subject and started following that subject over a period of years. And for literally 4 years, I was just following this one particular tiger. And that's when the idea of doing a book on her came into my mind. It was just after doing it over a period of 4 years, I still remember I was in Africa that time. During the monsoons of 2014, I got a call from here that that tigress has died because of natural reasons. And then I was like, my 4 years of work has gone to waste. Abhi kya karenge, itna sab kaam kiya maine. My dream of doing a book will never happen again. So, in fact, I started disassociating myself with individual tigers. That I won't do this anymore because it takes too much of time, energy, and then you get emotionally attached to one individual as well. So, but then I thought that when I looked at my own work, then I figured out that I've done similar work with other tigers also. It's just that I didn't do it with that kind of a purpose, but I did very similar work in Ranthambore as well. I've done some work in Corbett as well. I've done some work in Pinch as well, where, over a period of time, there were certain individual tigers which I documented. So from there came the concept of Decade with Tigers when, I just decided to compile all this documentation and give it a nice narrative. As Ali mentioned, I don't believe in just a photo album kind of a book. It just looks like a Shadi ka album. So there has to be a strong narrative. A strong sense of storytelling needs to complement the images. And I could see that, there were various tiger characters across India, which in fact have become like, they are the brand ambassadors of Indian wildlife. So, so that was the motivating factor for me to come out with Decade with Tigers.
So interesting.
Though in today's time, a lot of people ask me that why don't you do a sequel of Decade with Tigers? I said, "Ab itna patience nahi hai mere paas." I'm spending one more decade following individual tigers.
Well, we'll see at the end of the decade. Maybe you'll look back and say, oh, I have enough for the sequel. So, Ali, tell us, you've been responsible for some of the most extraordinary experiences people can have in the forests of Madhya Pradesh. Reni Pani was one of the first lodges to actually take people on foot and to show them that there is more to a wildlife safari than chasing a tiger in a jeep. Yes? So tell us how that happened. Tell us perhaps a little incident about one of your trips on foot, and tell us how this has all worked its way into your book.
Yeah, so I mean, Satpura as a park is quite unique. I think when we were starting up tourism, in the area, a lot of like parks, more popular parks, there was too much rush, and at that time the forest department, was quite proactive, including Mr. R.P. Singh, who's here. They wanted to do a very different model in Satpura, so we are lucky to have a team there, right from the PCCF of the state to the field director, who wanted to create different experiences. So rather than just being in a jeep and following tigers, we started, walks, we started night safaris, we started boat and canoe safaris for the bird life, because, tiger reserve is being protected for the tiger, but everything below gets kind of protected as a result, and and Satpura is blessed with mountains, with rivers, with meadows, with mixed forests. So you have a very, very different landscape to enjoy all these different activities. And also, one of the kind of missions in this book is also to kind of communicate to the audience as well of how good tourism, good ecotourism can be like a driver for conservation, which slowly is coming into the Indian mindset. Otherwise, earlier, it was not seen as something which is very pro conservation. People would say that this disturbs wildlife. But having this sort of spread out tourism, low impact tourism, low number of vehicles, that kind of ensured that there was a high value experience, while we could employ communities, whether in the form of guides or drivers or people who would work at lodges. And to give you a statistic now, in the district of Hoshangabad, which is now Narbadapuram, I think Satpura employs the park itself without the forest guards and all, just the tourism employs more than 1,000 people. This is excluding Pachmari, just the Madai area, which is on the lower side. So that community benefit is, something which we've incorporated in the book also to kind of communicate to the audience that, these sort of activities in the long run plays a big part in the protection and conservation of animals, because those same people who are guides now, drivers now, because they were living in the periphery, would have conflict or interaction with wildlife. Tigers would eat their livestock, herbivores would eat their crops, and their livelihood was not easy. They were collecting forest products, and now those same people are working in tourism in their homes itself, where the thing that they know best. So there's a shift, and now the tiger numbers are growing, and wildlife is growing quite well. So this is, of course, many parks are having this model, but I think that that's one of the main things, that tourism is a great conservation tool, and we've put a full chapter dedicated to that.
Fantastic. So Shivang, you've been known for all your images of the cats. And yet in this book, you have another very strange hero, the Satpura leopard gecko. How was that? How did that happen? How did you enjoy that experience? How did you get those magical images?
Well, when Ali and I, we were having a discussion about the content for the book, this was actually Ali's idea to have a Satpura leopard gecko documentation. But the documentation also had to be so powerful because he wanted to make it the cover of the book. And I'm more into feline species, and I mean, whatever is the size of the cat, I'm fine working on those kind of cat species. I'm not into reptiles. So, first of all, me and Irwin works at Renipani and is the chief naturalist also out there. Our first task, and he's also not into reptiles. So our first task was to figure out what is a Satpura leopard gecko. वो दिखता कैसे? So fortunately, there are certain naturalists in the Satpura landscape who have that domain expertise, and using their help, we got to know that, okay, this is how the species looks like, and for the first time, typically, मेरे को photo देख के बहुत अच्छा लगा कि it's a very nice looking species. So then we got an idea that the best way to find this would be, visiting the Pachmani landscape and exploring areas outside the forest, looking at various rock formations and caves and things like that. And for some weird reason, in the month of December, we decided to go for a recce, which is not a great period for reptiles because they are hibernating that time. But still, we decided to go for a recce in December, just to understand the landscape. And for around 4 to 5 days, me and Irwin were doing a lot of night patrols, walking inside caves and all. At times, we got stuck into caves. And finally, there was one cave, and there was one local guy who was there with us who had seen the species earlier. So he was taking us to all the areas where he had seen this particular species earlier. And then, we discovered this cave which had a beautiful rock painting. So then I told Ali that cover photo-like content tab banega if we get this gecko against this backdrop of this rock painting. So that was too much of an ask. ठीक है, सपने देखना अच्छी बात होती है, but ये कुछ बहुत ज़्यादा ही weird सपना था हमारा. So then we came back in the summer months, which is a good activity time for geckos and all. So, and this time we were properly armed with one more resource from the Renipani team. This guy called Shubham, who is a naturalist, and he comes from an Amboli background, so he has got a lot of experience working with reptiles. So we took him as a part of our team, and we gave him a task that, you need to find this thing for us. So to our good fortune, we found the gecko, but we found it in that same cave that we had visualized, in that rock painting cave. And so that's how that image was created. And we had a long discussion about whether this image should be the cover of the book and all. But then I guess we decided to go in for the bear, because bear is a keystone species in Satpura, and it has been holding the brunt of sighting pressures for a long period of time in Satpura, because tiger sightings have recently started happening, but earlier, people used to come to Satpura for seeing bears and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, having worked on this particular assignment for this book, working on a gecko species, a lot of times Irwin and I we keep on discussing that अब next chip के लिए कौन सा document करना चाहिए.
And I think just to add, for challenging images, this was probably one of the more challenging ones. Searching for the climbing, Irwin and of that. But what I from them, they were like stretched quite a lot for that. So yeah, but good reward after.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it just opened a new chapter in the kind of work I do, because I never thought that I'll spend so many days searching for a gecko in my life.
So another image that, of course, pops up is that absolute dream image of the leopard in front of Renipani sign. That's a bit like that puma in front of the Hollywood sign from LA, Steve Winter's image. So tell us how that happened, and was it luck? Was it a leopard that used to go that way and you captured it? What was the story behind that?
No, so I think, of course, Shivang was with us in the camera trapping exercise, and he's of course pioneered that in India at least. And I think, of course, everyone's seen, people in our field have seen that shot of the puma with the Hollywood background. And we have wildlife coming into the property that we knew for a long time. And we had put up trail cameras to determine that. You can see by the tracks and signs and everything. But we wanted that one impactful, photo that would actually, reveal that whole thing with the whole name of the lodge and all that. So, as luck would have it, just like similar to the, leopard gecko thing, you have a dream and kind of sometimes happens, and it happens a lot in wildlife. Just the other day I was on a safari with a guest, and there was too many jeeps on one particular sighting, so we left that and we went to a lake, and the guest just said, we heard about a tiger moving in a certain direction, and we went to anticipate, and the guest was just like, I wish I would see it here on this lake, and 2 seconds later I spotted the tiger right there. So sometimes luck just works out like that. What you dream is what you get. And same thing with the leopard. We wanted that shot, and then on one of our night drives, one of our naturalists, while coming back, his name is Arvind, he saw this leopard entering from the gate into the property. So straight away he told all of us, and then at that time Shivang was in Delhi and we spoke to him. So he had left a couple of camera traps at the property. So it got deployed, and he had his field team also there. So they were monitoring. So we actually deployed that camera, I think, in middle of March or early April, and kept that camera there, day in and day out till June actually. And finally, the leopard then maybe changed its path and whatever. Finally, we got a shot in June, first week of June, and we all very excited went and checked the photo and realized actually that this basically the camera had two flashes, one to illuminate the leopard and one to illuminate the name of the signboard of Rainy Pani. So the flash malfunction after 3 months of trying for the shot, and only the signboard got illuminated and the
was a
flash
dark-
on the leopard
It was a dark
didn't.
silhouette of
So we
a
just got a
leopard.
silhouette of the leopard. So we were
And the
like,
signboard illuminated.
so we gave up. Then we said that this is probably the best image we could get. And then luckily we just said, okay, let's try it for 2 more weeks before the monsoon hits. And a week or 2 later, the leopard again came, and this time, we got that image.
Amazing, amazing. So Shivang, going back to this conversation about, you and me being cataholics, and then learning to look at other things along the way. There are so many people who get inspired by the work you do, and they all want to become Shivang Mehta and shoot cats. And there are now 100,000 photographs of tigers floating around. What can you tell all these people about what to do and how to make an image that makes a difference, that tells a story, and is truly something spectacular? It's very easy to do portraits. Everybody does portraits. You're now a member of the International League of Conservation Photographers. What is conservation photography? How do you make your stories come to life through your images?
So first of all, as photographers, whether you are a hobbyist photographer or you are doing it professionally, it is important for people to understand the difference between a good image and a great image. So, okay, I'll give a example which is very relevant from today's perspective. I mean, I feel that today the barometer of good and great is actually your thumb, right? You get up in the morning, the first thing you will do is pick up your mobile phone, you'll open a tool like Instagram, and then you'll use your thumb for scrolling through, the tons of creative and visual pollution which is there on Instagram, right? The moment the thumb stops somewhere, that means there's something in that image, because that image has touched your soul, right? If you decide to press that heart button, there's something good in that image, because you're taking the pain to do that also. And finally, if you decide to write some comment or leave a remark, then I guess in this world of social media, then that's a great image, because you have taken the pain to write something as well. And usually, you will notice this in your behavior, that images which are great, you tend to remember those images. I may not remember the photographer, but I remember that, okay, this is a great image I saw somewhere. So the idea, as you said, that a tiger as a subject is probably the most photographed species in India in today's time. It's no longer the case that seeing a tiger in the wild is a very rare thing. And as we speak right now, there may be around 40, 50 different tigers being photographed in all national parks of India. Safari time is on. So now in this kind of a scenario where so many tiger images are coming out, it's for the photographer to decide that what should I do to stand out from the crowd. A few things which I can tell people is that, yes, a lot of people who are going for regular safaris to tiger reserves, you may develop a liking towards a particular place, say Bandhavgarh or Ranthambore or Satpura and all. But I'm not in favor of getting married to a national park, because then, as an Indian photographer, we all are blessed to be born in a country with varied habitats. You're from swamps to mangroves to grasslands to sal forests to rainforests, and across these habitats, there's some other tiger habitat, and tigers are living in all these habitats. So why would someone be just focused on one place? You know, so you can diversify your area of focus and cover a wider gamut of geographies to come out with a much better portfolio of images. Plus, there are a lot of places in India which are still unexplored. So you can divert your attention from the popular tiger reserves and go to lesser-known destinations, because then it is helping in two ways. One, it is of course helping in boosting tourism and coming out with a powerful photographic documentation of a place which has not been covered properly. And it's also helping in spreading awareness about that particular location. And so this, by following this kind of a approach, I feel that, there will be a lot of variety which people will see in their own portfolio. And secondly, I, in the past few years, I've been working on a lot of projects like the work that I did with Ali, similar work I did in Corbett landscape, in the Eastern Himalayan landscape, where the entire idea was to document wildlife outside protected areas, because what happens inside protected areas is, there are traditional safaris and you get to see things. But there's a lot of wildlife outside protected areas which is completely ignored. And, my experience working with wildlife outside protected areas has been quite unique because, yes, there's a strong usage of technology that we put in the form of camera trapping, DSLR camera traps and things like that. But the impact this entire exercise has on the local community is immense. So if I consider the Eastern Himalayan landscape, where, in every landscape there's a apex target species that you are targeting. So in the Eastern Himalayas, the idea was to document the highest altitude black panther, right? So with that objective, that work started. But when you are targeting an apex species on camera traps, you get some other species also. You get leopard cats, you get civets, different kinds of civets, and a host of other species. Now, the communities I was working with, the villagers I was working with, they just knew about the presence of a kala tendua hai hamare yahan, because that's something which they had seen from the naked eyes. It's because of our work in today's time, even a small kid in that village knows that what is a leopard cat, what's the large Indian civet, what's the Himalayan palm civet, the difference between these three things. Because we deployed all those camera traps, and these are DSLR camera traps. The quality of documentation is very different from a trail camera. The level of detailing in those images is much higher. I mean, it's a professional documentation. So people are able to spot these differences. The community is much more informed after a given point of time. So that, to me, gives an immense sense of satisfaction that it's just not about photography. The images have gone a long way in creating some kind of awareness at a local level, because these are the people who need to know that what kind of landscape they are living with and what are the wild denizens around them. So I know this is a very advanced stage of photography in someone's photographic career, but nevertheless, it is a stage in photography which people should aspire that, there is a lot of wildlife outside protected areas which needs a lot of focus. And especially, we are sitting in the city of Bhopal. There's been some wonderful documentation of Bhopal tigers which has been done. So, I'll be very happy if some young mind picks this up as a project, that let me compile some kind of photographic work on the urban wildlife of Bhopal. So that is what conservation photography is all about.
Fantastic. So, just picking up a thought from there and transferring to you. We've talked about how photography makes an impact and gives back to the community. How does wildlife tourism do exactly that? And I think you have a lot of experience in that field.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, photography through the imagery educates, just like Shivang was saying, you go to remote areas. People don't know, that they have a certain species. They might know that it is around, but they don't know what it is. Like that, even when in Satpura, when we used to do education programs, everyone knows big animals like sloth bears, the kids have never seen, but they have like a perception about the animal because, sometimes it ends up attacking people, when they go out. There's sometimes a interaction which could be negative. And so there's this fear, and also, basically education and photography obviously shows them what there is. But tourism, on the other hand, of course, the guides and all start seeing what there is around, but it gives them an alternate livelihood, which, makes the people see the wildlife as an asset, which earlier probably was a conflict situation. Just like earlier I had mentioned, people have, most of the people around our tiger reserves in MP and other parts. It's not just about MP, it's even, I keep doing trips to Ladakh for snow leopard. It's the same thing there. That people have livestock, the carnivore, the predator is the kind of conflict situation. And then these people have learned that if you start hosting people, for example, the snow leopard story is very similar also, that those same people who are herders, they have become homestay owners. Now people start coming to their homestay and staying, and then they become trackers. So that same thing, the snow leopard, which was an adversary to them, has now become their asset because they are earning their livelihood by showing that animal. People are coming to stay with them because of that animal. And it's a principle all across the world, which now is filtering into India also. So I think main thing, I mean, in India we are not as tourism participants, we can't do active management, which is like how it's happening in Africa. But at least tourism can help in generating revenues for communities, employing locals, and doing things as locally as possible, so the footprint is less and the benefits to the locals is much more, and that's how the wildlife will get protected.
Fantastic. I think we could probably carry on talking about this the whole evening, but we're running out of time, and what I'd like to do is open this to questions from the audience.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. Is it okay if I ask the question in Hindi so that we engage more of the crowd in the auditorium?
Sure.
You could
Yeah,
feel
of
the
course.
response in that. Yeah. So my thought is, जैसे जैसे इंडिया में लोग tourism के बढ़ते जा रहे हैं towards ecotourism, we will grow that way. मतलब more and population go that way. But all of us, सबका एक ना एक experience ऐसा हुआ है कि दिन भर गाइड ने घुमाया है, दिखा नहीं, एक footprint दिखा, घर आ गए और lodge चले गए, drinks पिया, and then you're back to your urban life. What would you want for the authorities and the public and the mindset, क्या बदलना चाहिए लोगों को when they approach these lodges and approach wildlife photography, so that it's more conscious, सब ज़्यादा खुश होके वापस आएं and ज़्यादा अच्छे से absorb कर पाएं? That what movement needs to happen in the authorities and in the people when we go there?
My point of view, there's a clear divide in this country between the Department of Tourism and the Department of Environment and Forests, because both have very different objectives. We need a space where there is an overlap of these two, a special wing to be created where people are trained in the field of wildlife tourism. The minute that happens, the approach to tourism in wildlife and nature and wilderness areas will change. That's one very important thing. And when we do that, then we'll have people who are trained naturalists to approach things differently. A few lodges today have well-trained naturalists, but the average homestay or wildlife tourism accommodation provider does not have access to really well-trained naturalists. And that's where the problem lies. So it lies in the forest department not being trained in tourism. It lies in the tourism people not focusing on wildlife. And it lies in naturalists not being trained to be the top level guides that they should be. So those are the three issues we need to address. Ali.
Yeah, I think to add to what Latika said, that good train, like you were talking about people going back unsatisfied. You know, one of our, you know, in this tourism trade, there's a lodge in Corbett. They have a really good tagline which says, "Seek the tiger but find the forest," which you know, really makes sense, because every time you're not going to see a tiger or one big mammal. You know, you have to go with that open mind, enjoy everything that you see, right from you know, the birds to the even the tracks. जो आप बोल रहे थे ना कि एक पंजा दिखता है और फिर घर चले जाते हैं, मगर वो पंजे से ही फिर ट्रैक करके टाइगर दिखता है बाद में. So, but if you don't find that, that's fine. But what Latika was saying, that well-trained naturalists and well-trained guides actually bring the forest alive for you. So when you're seeing those tracks, they tell you what those tracks mean. When you hear the calls, they tell you what those calls mean. When you see the prey of the tiger, they tell you about the prey. So at least you are engaged with that whole situation. Okay, you want to see the tiger, but you might have seen the tracks, you might see the prey calling, and these are the signs that it's around. Now, seeing or not seeing is down to a lot of things, down to luck. So I think that point is very important, that good training and good engagement from both tourism and forest department, and of course the tourism industry itself, where we change the mindset from just focusing on the apex species and go to a broader perspective. And of course, when you see the tiger, nothing like it, but you should go back happy finding the forest.
Absolutely. I guess, you know, talking about naturalist training and all, if we compare it to places in Africa, for example, say, if I take an example from Kenya. So, you know, as a young person in a country like Kenya, I can take up guiding as a profession, a full-fledged profession, by undergoing a proper course into it. And it's not like a few months course. You know, it's a proper, you know, 1.5 years, 2 years course, after which I'll be certified as a guide of a certain caliber. You know, in African terms, I'll be certified as a bronze level guide. And having done some work as a bronze level guide, I again appear for my examinations, and then I'll be certified as a silver level guide. And after that, there's a gold category. So, you know, even that guide or the naturalist, you know, for him also it's a constant challenge to grow in his career, because and he'll strive to grow in his career, because a bronze guy wants to become a silver guy. So, and that is how, you know, his pay scale will also increase. But we don't have similar things in India. You know, the concept of naturalists is very diluted in India, and it's just present in a few lodges. Like Renipani has a great team of naturalists, but there are a lot of places in India where the concept doesn't even exist, right? And even the local guides who are there, people from the communities who are picked up as guides, you know, there's a lot of things which can be done for their training as well, because their training is great for a certain kind of job, but they may not be able to handle a unique diversity of guests coming from various places. So yeah, a lot has to be worked on that front.
Thank you. Another question?
Yeah, for Mr. Mehta, I have a question. You went to Satpura Tiger Reserve. And what did you say you found animal in plenty?
Are you able to hear it?
No, it's a little muffled. Sorry.
Mr. Mehta said that he has been to Satpura National Park and found one specific animal quite large in numbers. What was that?
You went to the national park and you found some specific animal. The gecko.
I think we are talking about the Satpura leopard gecko.
Achha.
So that's a
Lizard.
It's a lizard.
Lizard. Because when I used to go to Satpura, I found only a wild buffalo and nothing else.
सर आपको बार बार जाना पड़ेगा और कई बार जाना पड़ेगा.
जाना तो पड़ेगा कई बार, लेकिन जाएं कैसे? हर बार तो जा नहीं सकते.
Maybe you can increase the periodicity of your visit. Plan a 3-4 day kind of a trip so that you have chances for doing multiple safaris and all. So आपको शायद दिखेगा. And also you need to choose the right season.
And the right lodge.
And the right lodge, of course. Because then you will be working with a good team of naturalists.
But I feel large in going to a lodge. You follow me or not? Lodge means शर्म आती है lodge में जाने से, क्योंकि I can't pay their heavy bills. And I've been to Mikumi also, Lake Manyara, Gorongoro crater also, and found very little wildlife over there.
Hello everyone. So climate change is very evident now these days, and everyone talking about the sustainability, और sustainability के 3 major component है, social, environmental and economical. Okay. So मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मतलब क्वेश्चन नहीं है, मेरा आपकी तरफ से what you would like to suggest to our young generations, okay, कि इन सारी चीज़ों को एक तरफ समेट के रखें और इन सारी चीज़ों को एक धागों में पिरो के रखें ताकि हमारा जो सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट है वो अच्छे से हो, क्योंकि आज की डेट में हम लोग ज़्यादातर डेवलपमेंट की तरफ मूव कर रहे हैं, ना कि सोशल या इन्वायरमेंटल की तरफ. तो व्हाट यू वुड लाइक टू सजेस्ट सो दैट यंग जनरेशन कैन कनेक्ट ऑल दीज 3 थिंग्स?
I think Latika has come back from a fabulous marathon trip where she has seen direct impact of climate change. So she would be in a good position to answer this.
So ऐसे है जी कि climate change बहुत अलग-अलग वजहों से हो रहा है, और उनमें से एक है हमारा कंक्रीट का इस्तेमाल करना. और हमारे अगर आप प्राचीन काल की आर्किटेक्चर को देखेंगे तो हमारे जितने किले, हमारे जितने फोर्ट्स थे, हमारे गांव के जितने मिट्टी के घर थे, उनमें कहीं कंक्रीट यूज़ नहीं हो रहा था. और करीबन 15% ग्लोबल वार्मिंग और कंक्रीट के यूज़ से है. सो अगर आप अपने ट्रेडिशनल आर्किटेक्चर की तरफ वापस जाएं और उन तकनीकों को अपने मॉडर्न डेवलपमेंट में यूज़ करें तो उससे बहुत फ़र्क पड़ेगा. दूसरा, अगर हम मध्य प्रदेश जैसे स्टेट में रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी को ज़्यादा इस्तेमाल करें तो उससे बहुत इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा. हमारे जो कैटल पॉपुलेशन है उसके लिए जो चारा चाहिए उसे कहाँ उगाना है, कैसे उगाना है और कैटल को कितने नंबर्स में रखना है उसको कंट्रोल करें, उससे बहुत फ़र्क पड़ेगा. सो दीज आर स्मॉल थिंग्स दैट वी कैन डू. आई कुड टॉक अबाउट दिस अ लॉट. मे बी सेशन के बाद आप और हम मिल के बात कर सकते हैं, पर ये कुछ सुझाव हैं जो हम सब अपने रोज़ की ज़िंदगी में कर सकते हैं. एंड ऑफ कोर्स मैं बोलूँगी कि टीवी और स्क्रीन्स को अब घर छोड़ के बाहर निकलने का टाइम आ गया है. हमें अपने आप बाहर जाके प्रकृति के बारे में सीखना है. जितना हम बाहर जाएंगे, स्क्रीन को नीचे रख के असली पेड़, असली घास और असली हवा को पहचानेंगे, उतना हम इन सब चीज़ों के लिए काम कर सकते हैं.
Thank you. I think we have time for one last question. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ranosh. I have a very simple question, and that is, apart from wildlife tourism, what could be more potential ways wherein common man can actually aid to the wildlife and also get back in return something? Apart from like wildlife tourism, what are the more potential pathways?
Okay, so I think you're in the most fantastic place to do that. Bhopal, we've just said, is a city of tigers. And you share your space with so many animals. The big cats, tigers and leopards, you have the small cats, you have all of the dog species, the canids. So much is happening in Bhopal around you. If you recognize that you're sharing this space, and when you plan development, when you plan to build your house, when you plan to go and plant a tree, if you start thinking about what you can do for these birds and animals, you'll be making a big difference. So you plant the correct fruiting trees, you plant the correct flowering trees so that there are more bees, there's more pollination, there's the correct type of trees for birds to nest in. In the summer months, put out water where you need to. Make sure that populations of feral cats stay down so that predation on birds is limited. There's 100 things that you can do without it being connected to wildlife tourism.
Thumbs up, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Miss. Can we really running behind schedule? I think our panelists for the next session are also there. Okay, one last question. Okay, all right.
आप वाइल्ड लाइफ के लिए निकलते हैं और जंगलों में जाते हैं. मैंने जो चीज़ नोटिस की है जिस पर यहाँ कोई डिस्कशन नहीं हुआ, उसमें यह है कि जो एंक्रोचमेंट है, इलीगल एंक्रोचमेंट जंगलों में, हमारे भोपाल के आसपास ही देखें अगर हम, तो उन जंगलों में जो एंक्रोचमेंट है, मे बी ड्यू टू जो लोग सत्ता में हैं, पावर में हैं, या जिनके पास पैसा है, वो ऐसे कैसे किसी को कोई अलाउ कर सकते हैं कि वो जंगलों में जाके रहने लगे. जंगलों में उस तरह से जाना तो ठीक है जिस तरह से आप कह रही हैं मैडम, मगर यहाँ जिस तरह की चीज़ें हो रही हैं आसपास, भोपाल की ही देखें और भी कई जगह, हाथियों को लेके या शेरों को लेके, कि वो रिहायशी इलाकों में आके आ जाते हैं और कई तरह की चीज़ें होती हैं क्योंकि हम उनके एरिया में पहुँच गए हैं. मेरे ख्याल से एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है. और आप लोग जो जाते हैं इस तरह से वाइल्ड लाइफ के लिए, तो ये चीज़ आपने कितनी महसूस की है और आपको क्या लगता है इसमें क्या होना चाहिए? कैसे परमिशन मिल जाती है उन लोगों को कि वो वहाँ जाके इस तरह से अपना एंगेजमेंट कर लेते हैं? और मुझे लगता है इसमें वो लोग ज़्यादा हैं जिनके पास पावर या पैसा है.
अच्छा, ये बहुत बड़ा मसला है. आई डोंट थिंक इन 1 second आई कैन गिव यू अ सोल्यूशन. 2 very quick points. एक तो ह्यूमन वाइल्ड लाइफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट पे यहाँ पे काफ़ी लोग हैं जिन्होंने बहुत काम किया है. पीछे आरपी सिंह साहब बैठे हैं. ही इज़ वन ऑफ द गुरुज in this particular field, so maybe after this you can meet him and talk to him. I've worked in this field quite a lot. It's not a गोली, दवाई की गोली तो है नहीं कि मैं अभी दूं और सॉल्यूशन निकल जाएगा. मसला है, वी ऑल डील विद इट ऑन अ डेली बेसिस. और अब बहुत सारे लोग इस पे बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं. अनीश अंधेरिया जी हैं जिन्होंने बहुत डॉक्यूमेंटेशन किया है on development, on the impact of development, on illegal encroachments, impact on forest fragmentation. तो हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं, हम लोग रिसर्च भी कर रहे हैं, हम लोग अपनी फाइंडिंग्स को पॉलिसी और डिसीजन मेकर्स के सामने रखने की कोशिश करते हैं और शिवांग जैसे लोग इन्हीं कहानियों को अपने फ़ोटोग्राफ्स के ज़रिए पब्लिक के सामने लाते हैं। तो हम सब का यही प्रयत्न है कि हम इन्हीं विषयों को अपने ब्यूरोक्रेट्स, अपने पॉलिसी और डिसीजन मेकर्स के सामने ला के रखें और उनसे मदद और सहयोग मांगे इन सब चीज़ों के लिए काम करने के लिए। थैंक यू।
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Latika Nath, Mr. Shivang Mehta, and Mr. Ali Rashid for your passion for wildlife and all your conservation efforts that made for such wild and interesting session today. This session was sponsored by Sundaram Climate Institute. I would now request Mr. Raghav Chandra, founder director of the Bhopal Literature and Art Festival, to come on stage and felicitate our guests for this session. The memento that you see, ladies and gentlemen, is also the mascot of BLF 2024, which is a gone painting by Ram Singh Urveti ji. It's a painting that depicts evolution. A round of applause, please, for our guests.